Blue, what do we got up next?
All right, up next is our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. To hear your voice on the show and have your question answered, you're going to give us a call and leave a message at 951-268-4259. And our Mint Mobile question of today comes from James, who's asking about the adaptation of source material.
Hey, John and crew, this is James from Super, Texas, and I was wanting to know what your thoughts are. I just saw an article from the producer of the X-Men 97 animated series, and he said that his number one requirement when being able to pick his team of writers and produce stuff like that for the show was that they had to be fans of the X-Men. Because he said that when he worked on The Witcher, there were writers and people who worked on the show who were not fans, would mock the original source material, and he said that it caused a not so good environment for the crew. So I was wondering, what do y'all think about this? All right, thanks. Bring on the Sophie.
All right, James, thanks a lot for saying that. And this is a question that comes up once in a while about how important is it for filmmakers, creators, writers, whatever, to be, who are adapting older source material, to be fans of that original source material. Number one, it never hurts. But in the question of, do they need to be fans of the original source material? No, they really don't. They 100% don't. And actually, it's kind of funny that he brings up The Witcher, that some of the people working on The Witcher just weren't fans of the original source material. The Witcher's awesome. So if The Witcher is a result of getting in people who weren't actually fans of the original source material, awesome. Do that. Now, as far as the story about, they would mock the original source material and it caused problems. Well, the problem isn't that you had writers or creatives that weren't fans of the original source material. The problem is you had writers and creators who were assholes. That's a totally different thing. that has nothing to do about whether they are fans of the original source material or not. And newsflash, just because you hire somebody who's a fan of original source material will not stop them from being assholes. If there are people causing problems on your set, it ain't because they weren't fans of the original source material. Look, we've talked about this before. We've gone down laundry lists before of some of the worst films ever made that were based on adapted source material. And they were made by like the biggest fans of the world of that source material. Again, in an all other things being equal scenario, being a fan of that source material is definitely a positive. That's 100% a positive. Is it absolutely necessary? Listen, when writers and creatives make up new original stories, they're not pre-existing fans of some, nebulous source material that doesn't exist. They just come in and say, we've got this character. We have these things we understand about this character, and we're going to try to write a compelling, wonderful story about this character and the things we know. And you can learn about that stuff. So this whole idea, whenever I hear like, oh, this is going to be great. Why? Because the director they announced is a big fan of the original thing. It's like, I've seen that song and dance a dozen times before, and many times it turns out horribly. So it's not some make or break thing. So, hey, listen, if they're the showrunner of X-Men 97 and they're in charge of it, and they feel that for them, it's going to be a better work environment if we get fans of the original X-Men and everything in there too, great, more power to you. But is it a necessary thing? I don't think so. I just think history shows that it's not. Anyway, Rob, this is a question we've discussed a lot. And I think even you and I, over the years, we've gone back and forth a little bit on it. But what are your thoughts for what James is asking? Guys, we want to take a second to thank the sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. And now for the plot twist. I'm just kidding. There isn't one. Mint Mobile just has premium wireless from $15 a month. There's no trapping you into a 2-year contract or opening the bill to find all these crazy fees. There's no luring you in with free subscriptions to streaming services that you'll forget to cancel and be charged full price for. With my old wireless provider, every month when I opened the bill, it was like playing roulette. I never knew how big the bill was going to be, and it always seemed to get bigger. With Mint Mobile, it's totally different. I know exactly how little I'm paying every month, and there's never any surprises. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or a family. And at Mint Mobile, families start at just 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And guys, you get to use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. So transferring over couldn't be easier. So to get premium wireless from just $15 a month and no unexpected plot twists, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. You'll make your wallet very happy at mintmobile.com/Campea.
Well, I don't think you do have to be a fan of the source material. I always go back to Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Nicholas Meyer had not seen Star Trek, didn't know about Star Trek. But here's what you have to be. You have to respect the source material.
Sure, yes.
And anybody who's working on something has to understand, like, if you take on a franchise that's been around for a long time, what Nicholas Meyer did was he talked to Gene Roddenberry, found out, what were some of the things that inspired you. And then he watched Star Trek. And he watched it with an open mind, thinking, okay, he didn't look down at it. He's like, this is a successful franchise. It's been around for a long time. Why is it successful? Nicholas Meyer is a very highly educated. He was a novelist. He was a playwright. He was also a filmmaker. He made Time After Time. He was just a smart person that understood, okay, this storyline it has existed and has a fan base, and it's now being made into a second film. For what reason? And I think a smart person can identify why something is good and delve into that. Because I think a great storyteller, like my favorite director, Stanley Kubrick, he mostly adapted novels, but he worked in many different genres because he was smart. And I think when you go into something, whether it's The Witcher, whether it's Star Trek, whether it's the X-Men, I mean, you have to understand the X-Men's been around for a long time, since the 60s. It meant a lot to a lot of people. And you can look into it by doing even a cursory deep dive on one afternoon. You can understand why the X-Men means something. And then when you go in and watch the 92 animated series, if you don't respect the animated series, don't work on the show. But if you can identify as an intellectual, creative individual what that show is, what it means, and how it works, and how it's going to relate back to the original series, I think you can do a good job. The problem is, I think, when you get creators that feel they're beneath, or that the material's beneath them, that they would rather be working on something else.
That's true
Or they
of any
see it as-
genre, right?
Yeah, of any genre. Or they see it as a stepping stone to something else. I hate that. And you hear it in their interviews. Like someone who said, I never liked Star Trek growing up, but they gave me the Star Trek movie to direct, so meh.
I mean, what
Are you
like
talking about someone specific or?
Oh, just gonna leave that out there.
the writer? I mean, the writer is one thing, actors are another. But we hear the same question about actors. Like actors need to have been. Christian Bale was famously not a huge Batman guy before he got the role, and he to most people's favorite Batman. Mine is Ben, but for most people's favorite Batman. Anyway, Chris, you hear about this, and like, where do you fall on this whole discussion?
I mean, from an acting perspective too, you just do the research, right? You
Yeah.
do the research and find what you have in common with this character. You don't have to be a diehard fan. It's cool when you are. It's cool when we have people who, dressed as Spider-Man as kids becoming Spider-Man. It's really cool when you have somebody like David Tennant become the Doctor who was obsessed with Doctor Who as a child. Same with Peter Capaldi, who was the president of the fan club, but it's not necessary. But I think it's kind of a column A, column B situation. I think at least in a writer's room, you want people from all walks. You want people who have a fandom, an appreciation, all of that. But you want people who can play outside that sandbox and give some grounded things. Laura Donnie, who gave us the famous line, right, in WandaVision of what is grief but love persevering. She's not a comic book person. She's an incredible writer who gave us a brilliant scene with one of the most iconic lines that have come out of Marvel, But you have to have this balance of what I'm doing isn't just this thing like Rob was talking about. You have to respect it, you have to appreciate it. But we've seen diehard fans who go a little too overboard or a little too precious with material, and it comes out to be a weird storyboard hodgepodge mess. So I think it really just comes down to great vision. Whether you're a fan or not, it doesn't matter, but the respect needs to be there.
And you say the same thing about like historical things based on historical events,
Absolutely.
right? Like you may not have come out and goes, I was ever since high school I was the biggest fan of this historical event. But if you're going to do a story about it, you take time, you research, you figure it out, you get your own vision, and you go for it. So, I mean, it's interesting. Or you get something like Black Adam. The Rock has been he's been very, very vocal about how big he is on that character for over a decade, right? How respectful do you think this Black Adam movie is to the source material? Not very. But it made for a real damn fun movie. So at the end of the day, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't think it really matters that much. Anyway, thanks so much for calling that in. And by the way, guys, don't forget you can call in a Mint Mobile hotline question. Maybe you'll hear yours on our next episode.